Coming up, the Bruins win a matchup of hockey's top teams. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. The Bruins won a battle of the two highest point totals in the league last night, beating the Hurricanes in a shootout in Carolina. Locked On Bruins has more after Boston's 7th straight win.
The Boston Bruins are now 57-11-5 after weekend wins over both the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Carolina Hurricanes. This is Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Boston Bruins, and the game on Sunday was played without some injured players: Taylor Hall, Nick Foligno, Derek Forbort, and Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and Hampus Lindholm were all held out of the lineup as well for some minor ailments, bumps, and bruises. The Bruins still came out, built a 3-1 lead over Carolina. The Hurricanes did tie things up in the third period, but Boston prevailed in a shootout thanks to Jeremy Swayman, who made an amazing save at the end of overtime, as well as goals from Charlie Coyle and Jake DeBrusk. The Bruins are now 16 points ahead of Carolina in the overall standings and just continue to roll to an all-time season. Keep it locked to Locked On Bruins for all the latest on the black and gold.
The Canucks scored 3 goals in the final period to take down the Blackhawks in Chicago on Sunday. Locked On Canucks recaps the Vancouver victory.
Another game and another win for those Vancouver Canucks. Lots to talk about after a 4-2 Canucks win over the lowly Chicago Blackhawks. And another winning weekend for this club. They beat Dallas as well on Saturday. I'm Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks. Kyle and I are going to cover a bunch of things on Monday's episode of Locked On Canucks. But the biggest thing we might cover, should Elias Pettersson be a finalist for the Hart Trophy? Yeah, we all know it's going to Connor McDavid. But where does Pettersson rank among those Hart Trophy candidates? Well, he did have another 2-goal game in this one. Point streak up to 12 games. Again, Kyle and I are going to break it down for you on Monday's episode of Locked On Canucks.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NHL and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.